This is building an online presence and the foundations of marketing. If I don't cover everything, I'm sorry, there is a lot to cover. Hopefully ask a question at the end, and if I don't know the answer, I'm going to tell you I don't know the answer, but hopefully I can point you in the right direction. So let's get started. My name's Alex. I'm the environment and graphic artist at Melonhead Games. Also taking the lead on our marketing and web presence. I also work for UniSA, building the websites, doing printed material, digital material, anything they really need. I also work as a freelance front-end web developer. And this is Butters, who looks better than me, so it's better that she represents the talk. So I thought before we begin, this is the real meat of it, is everything you post online or anywhere is going to be the first time someone sees it and sees your brand. So before you publish anything, you got to ask yourself these questions, like what I'm making, does it serve a purpose? Does this reflect your brand positively? Does this reflect your brand's personality? Does your brand have a personality? Hopefully it does. So I mean, even down to this slide where kind of even if this isn't a Melonhead slide, it kind of represents our ideals of just like clean, funky, professional, like to have a bit of fun, a bit of banter, but and butters, always butters. Is it offensive? Obviously, if it gets to that point, just don't post it. Offensive is subjective, so you don't post a shooter. If your game's a shooting game, you don't post it on somewhere where kids access it, where it could be bad or something like that. And is it the best I can do? That's a never-ending question, but really important. As I said, it's the first time it's the first time everyone's going to see it. So do the best you can do. So why web and marketing? Because online presence and marketing in 2019 are going to go hand in hand. Marketing your business, ideally it's a full-time job, even at the size that we are all at. The people who have already released games would know marketing is a full-time job. You want someone just doing that. So hopefully there's some things in here that will just alleviate that pressure, where you could just take a day of your week and put a plan together. Have you begun the concept phase of your game? If you have, then you need to start your marketing right now. There's no reason not to, even if it's just getting on Facebook, if it's just saying, here's our logo, here's whatever. Also, getting online, there is a lot of accessibility and legal requirements that are always overlooked because they're not fun things to Google and they're not the things to think of when you make a website. So we'll cover that. First thing that I want to talk about is the marketing funnel. Last night, this was at the end of my slide, now it's at the start because it's better that everyone thinks about it while we talk about everything. These will change if you Google this. There is no set layout. These change, they change shapes, but they more or less work on the same thing. So it's a visual representation of how a potential customer is going to turn into a conversion or a sale. Funnels are going to be all over your marketing. It's not just someone buying your game, it's a funnel to join your mailing list, it's a funnel that they showed up to your event. They're also part of the larger funnel, but this helps you separate it out. Tools used in measuring your KPIs. I won't go into that, I was going to, but it's not really marketing. KPIs is your key performance indicators, which is basically, it tracks how your business is doing. Are you meeting sales? Are you gaining enough attention, etc. So the first stage is awareness. So that's your lead generating stage. Think of it more as a filter than a funnel. So that's your reach. That's your poster. It's your social media advertisements. It's your booths at conventions. It's your banners on the Steam storefront. It's something where I have nothing to do with your business, but I've now come into contact with it. That has to narrow it out. You can't please everyone. You're not meant to please everyone. If you do, if your marketing is targeted at everyone, you're A, going to waste your money, and B, you're going to get a weak quality of lead because not everyone is interested in everything you put out. That's just how it goes. We all know that. That's the thing. Marketing is, we all pretty much know it. Marketing is just visualizing what we already know and quantifying it. So your second stage is your interest stage. That means I've seen your game, or I've seen you, or I've seen whatever you're trying to push on me, and I'm now interacting with it on the first stage. So that first stage is interest. It's the beginning of the lead nurturing stage. So this is where you start offering people unique content. As I said, you're going to start seeing a decrease in actions, but you'll see an increase in the quality of leads because I want to be there and just make me stay there. So your examples are going to include mailing list signups, follows on social media, or taking a brochure at a convention. Next stage is your consideration. So this is, if we're talking games, this is your add to wish list, or I'm downloading a demo. It's costing me nothing, but I'm like, just like, do I want this? Is there a better alternate? So definitely a more higher quality lead. So I don't remember if I touched on retargeting ads, but I'll just mention it now because it's up there and it's too late to back out. So a retargeting ad is, okay, so if I get to consideration stage of your product and I'm like, nah, it's not for me, that's where a targeted ad usually comes in. Everyone here has had them where you've clicked on something, you didn't follow through with it, so they send you an email. Now you see the ads everywhere. Whether or not you choose to do them, it's your call, but the point of that is to get you, if you've dropped out from the consideration stage, you go back into the interest stage and just keep you in a loop. Final stage is action. It means I've bought your game, I've signed up to your mailing list. Yeah, it's what you wanted them to achieve. Is it the final stage? Obviously not. So some marketing funnels will just end it there. I'll kind of go on. Your next stage is retention, basically, is I bought your game, why am I going to keep coming back to buy more games? So how do you plan to retain your conversion? It's email updates, social media posts, blogs. Vlogs are basically just content that makes me know you're still making stuff. You set up like a Discord or an environment for people to focus in. Like these things, as I said, these are things that we're all kind of aware of that are happening, but they're done with a purpose. You need to, keep people coming back. DLC and just more games. Also, yeah, will your customers refer others to your product or game? Like, I like your game, so I'm going to tell my friends. Or I bought your game, it was a mistake, I won't tell anyone. All things to keep in mind. Okay, so your main types of web presences. This goes on, but this is the real core stuff and what's important. So you've got your social media, which is basically your public market. It's a pre-built platform with a pre-existing user base that allows you to engage with followers. Problem is, what makes it good is what makes it bad is that anyone can get on it. So you have to have a really loud voice to attract customers over to your stall, basically. Website is then your personal storefront, basically. It's your base of operations. If I've gone there, I've probably hit the interest stage, which means that's where you can start serving me content that matters to me. It's where you loop me in with your mailing lists and stuff like that. And then the final one is email, which again is the mailing list. That is the direct line of contact. It's potentially one click away from buying the game. It's whatever your market is, it's direct contact with the customer, because you can't be there to talk to everyone. So all this stuff has to represent you, which goes back to the first slide. Put the best effort you can into everything, because it's going to be the first time I interact with it. So social media, as I said, affects the awareness stage, interest stage, and the retention stage. Yeah, free, easy to sign up to, established user base to attract, aggregated analytics, which is really important. Because we all signed up to Facebook or we've all signed up to Google, they already know about us, they know what we're interested in. They will then pass those analytics onto you if you set up your presence right. So instead of spending $100 to target 1,000 people for a week, I can spend half that to attract less than that for a month, because I know what demographic are and aren't going to buy the game. That being said, don't just rely on their analytics. You have to do some research yourself. So whatever it means, playtests, all that stuff. It's a framework already set up to serve ads. which is really useful, which some of us have probably already done before. Also, different content works better on different platforms. So Facebook, that's your widest audience, pretty much supports everything. Its benefits are you're going to be able to tag friends. It's more accepting of a whole bunch of text, photos, videos. Twitter, that's your more limited, so you want to keep that all short and sweet. You can still external link, but its benefit now is hashtags. Actually, sorry, Facebook now supports hashtags, so start utilizing that. Hashtags are real important, obviously, but if you think about it, it goes back to the awareness stage without me having to sign up to your company. You can @ anyone. I don't have to be friends with you, and I can @ you or retweet you and stuff like that. It's a more open market. Instagram is the online picture book, so just don't rely on text. Don't rely on GIFs, because they just don't work. So there's already a thing of how you're going to have to make difference in your content is if you're posting GIFs to Facebook, because chances are people are having it set to autoplay. On Instagram, that just won't work, so you have to record a video for it. Again, hashtags make an appearance, so it's a real driving force of Instagram. YouTube, real interesting to note that it's the second most used search engine after Google, which means if you're not on it, you really need to get on it, because there's a huge market there. Obviously, it's a larger market, so you have to structure your content accordingly. So this is your more thought out stuff. This is your trailers, your promotional events, event videos, sorry. Text is supported, but no one's really reading the descriptions. Keywords, they are going to draw where your content appears. I'll show you a trick at the end to utilizing the keywords so you end up in the same sort of areas where the videos where you want to be end up. Alright, so how do you take care of all of that easily? With a social media calendar. If you don't know what it is, this will become one of your favorite documents. It basically allows you to plan your content for social media in advance. You can line up your posts with popular and relevant hashtags. So this week we got National Selfie Day coming up. So maybe there's going to be a Rooftop Renegade selfie, maybe. If that's a trending hashtag on that day, then your content's getting out there. So utilize it, but be relevant. Don't do this national. I don't know. Give me an example. Something that's just totally not relevant.
The Hamburger Day.
The National Hamburger Day, and your game's about farming vegetables and being like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Also, there's apps out there that will automate this for you. Whether or not you want to use it for money restrictions, whatever, if you don't really want it. But it's out there. As we get into, if you can rely on third-party applications as much as possible, it's going to make your life easier. Alright, so social media is done. Website. So when you're making a website, what do you need? First is you need the web page, and that's not meant to be a smart response. You need to plan this out. The design you have to plan out. You don't want to reinvent the wheel. People know what to expect when they go to a game's website. They know what to expect when they go into a shop. Don't confuse them, basically. So search other sites, search competitors, see what they do. Google. The best thing you can Google at this stage is website designs 2019, and you'll just go to Google Images and just see them all. You'll see the big thing at the moment is just bright block colors, custom animations, big bold font, but real minimalistic. What am I up to? Oh yeah, so draft your content. What are your keywords? So how am I going to appear in Google? Are people going to find what they search? What are my images? Make sure you're picking the right images because they're going to end up on Google Images. Plan how your pages will link together. So that's going to be important to seeing I have relevant content. We'll get into that hopefully later if I remember that. But what you actually put on your website is really important for Google. If they feel like you're being cheeky, you don't have enough content, you have too much content, you use too many buzzwords, I'll talk about it after, but you do any of those things, they will penalize you. So you need a domain. That's a big question that gets asked, is how do you pick your website, like your domain? Do you pick .com, do you pick .com.au, do you pick .co, do you pick .games? Buy them all. Redirect them. Especially if you have a company name that's tricky and you know people are going to spell it wrong. Buy the version that's spelled wrong and just redirect it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Politicians do it. You'll see, like, just before an election, they'll buy up all the xnxsucks.com and stuff like that, so no one's going to get it and stuff like that. It's a huge market in it, so get it before someone else does and then tries to sell it to you, which almost happened to us. And then hosting, that's another question. Where do you go? Like, they're all the same at the end of the day. It's some have better customer experience and the other service experience than the others. Some are just better branded. At the end of the day, a lot of them are the same. So your popular ones are HostGator, GoDaddy. I don't even know what else. I've used them a lot. If you're using something like Wix and Squarespace, they're going to offer their own hosting, but all the stuff comes at a price. All right, what do you need to think about when you're designing your website? So branding. This even goes beyond building a website. This is just everything. Build a brand guide. Every organization that's out there has a brand guide. It's basically a PDF that says what fonts I use, what colors I use, what my logo looks like. Oh, this is a big one that didn't get included. Your logo, you need two variants. You need a horizontal version and you need a vertical version. You need a negative version, you need a color version, because you are not in control of how your logo is going to be used. You want to think you are, but you are not in control. So if I'm building a website to display Adelaide Gamers or whatever, and I've got my page laid out that I want you all in these cells, and you got like rectangle boxes, you give me a vertical stacked logo that's that big, I've got reserved amount of space, you're going to be tiny, and someone who has a horizontal logo is getting that much screen space. Have both ready to go. Mobile. So everyone here would be using their mobile more than they would their desktop. So you have to design for that first, which is really hard for older web developers to get out of that habit, but that's really important. You're going to be penalized if you have a bad experience. When was the last time you went on a website and you had to scroll left to right? It just doesn't happen. So don't do it. Don't expect people to do it. And plan it all so it goes up and down. Test your website across multiple devices and browsers. Real important. Chrome, Firefox, Opera, they don't talk to each other. 98% of the code they understand, but a lot of them don't, so you're going to need fallbacks. So yeah, test them on browsers. Shrink your windows down to see how it's going to appear on mobile. If I get time, I'll show you a real cool way of doing that. Accessibility. I was saying to Adam before that this should be a talk on its own, because that's real important, that no one thinks of, I don't want to say no one, that's mean. It's not on the forefront of when you're making a website. You're not thinking, how is it accessible? Are my colors readable? Do I have alt text on my images? That's a big one. It's now a legal requirement that all your images have text to represent them when that image doesn't load. So yeah, get across that. Heading tags. Google structures your content, the importance of your content based on heading tags. So you can only use one H1 on your page, and then it goes down further. If you try to trick that, or if you use them incorrectly, you can get penalized. But there are tools to test all of this stuff. Testing colors, making sure your text color has high enough contrast on your background. There's a website for that, to see if there's alt text, to see if anything. There's all these free sites, so just utilize them. All right, this is a scroll map. This is what you want to think about when you're structuring not just your website, but really any content ever, really, is it basically just shows user interest, how someone who lands on your website, where their interest goes. It looks exaggerated, but I'll show you, the next slide will show you that it's actually not. So there's two things going on here, above the fold and below the fold. That comes from newspaper days, where everything needs to be, anything you want to direct people to needs to be the first thing I see. I'm not going to scroll all the way to the bottom. So if you've got key stuff down there, you have to move it up, or at least make something up here go to down there. So as you can see with the different devices, you're going to have to lay out your site differently. It can't just shrink down. This is a real scroll map and heat map. So this is legit data of how people use websites. Red being the hottest is where all the attention goes. Straight away drop off. No one's scrolling. Down here, no one gets there. This stuff up here, oh, you can't see the mouse. This side is the heat map. So that's where users are touching the most. So these are good to see. Like, okay, if you have a symbol that looks like a button, maybe you're not getting a lot of actions on your website because people are confused by it, basically. So real good indication of how people do internet. Okay, this is the fun stuff. Google search engine optimization and penalties. So first, Google. Set your business up on Google if you haven't already. There's a dashboard for that, Google My Business. It requires a physical address. So if you're set up here, you give them this address, they send you a postcard, enter in a code, you're now on Google. I mean, you're going to be on Google anyway, but now you're a business on Google, which is going to help your local search optimization because it can now pinpoint where you are and where the other people are. Google Analytics. Really, really useful. Legal requirements that come with that, which we'll cover after. But basically, you can track everything on your website. Where they're coming from, how long they stay on your pages, did they click anything once they got to your page. I'm kind of blending Search Console, which is the next one, with that as well. They kind of blend together. Google Analytics is more demographics. So because I have a Google account, most of us have a Google account, we've searched things, we've looked up games. Google knows I really like first-person shooters. Google knows I really like Zelda. So those appear on your demographics, which you can take advantage of. Google Search Console is more how your site is actually doing, like your actual pages. How many clicks you're getting, what's the response, etc. So this is a breakdown of Google Analytics. Just grabbed this of Google Images. But everyone's will look basically like this. So this is tracking users. Give it a time thing. It's going to tell you if it's going up or down. Sessions, which is a long period of time, how long they're on your website. Bounce rate, which is I've come to your site, there was nothing that interests me, so I left straight away before clicking on anything. So, and then how long I was actually on there. Real dry stuff, but really important because, again, Google will penalize you if your numbers aren't great because they're going to say, well, why am I putting you up the top if your bounce rate is huge, you don't have any content? Yeah, so keep that in mind in that. Google Search Console is the same thing. Not same thing, but same kind of appearance, but for different things. So this is actually how your website's doing. So total clicks, total impressions, that's where you appeared on Google. Your average click-through rate, these are always going to be like low. This image is actually pretty low, but they're always going to be around there. Average position, that's where you appear on Google for whatever given keyword. And it will also tell you what keywords people are typing in to find your website. You'll be surprised what you'll find. We found that we ended up on 15 Google searches because someone typed in fruit games, spelled F-R-O-O-T, because in my bio it says I like Fruit Loops. So keep that in mind when you're writing your content and how you appear. But don't exploit that because Google's smart and we'll find out. So email marketing. This is your emails and EDMs, which is electronic direct mail. Really confusing. Once you start focusing on marketing, you're going to find that these are just used interchangeably. And anyone who says EDM, most people say EDM are going to just be referring to the emails. So it involves you sending out email campaigns to your customers. Don't remember if I covered what a campaign is. I think I do. If not, I will cover it. So emails, that's the final stage of an online presence. Pre-built platforms, utilize them. So MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, GetResponse are great for our size of business. I mean, assuming we're all the small businesses. Even if you're not, bigger companies start using these things as well. They just start paying money for them. These are all free. Actually, I don't know about Campaign Monitor. The only times I've used it have been on paid things, but I'm pretty sure there's a free version. You want to use them rather than doing it yourself is because you don't want to be responsible for people's email addresses. If that leaks or anything like that, they're going to be more covered than you are. That being said, you've got to read their terms and conditions. Their terms and conditions say, that you will tell your users that you're using this service, you're collecting their data for this purpose. If you don't and there's a leak, you're going to get blamed as well. So just be I'm coming off real like, you're going to get blamed. It's just like, it's not that bad. It hasn't happened to a lot of people, just you have to keep this stuff in mind. Yeah, you can, when you're going through this process, you can start tagging your customers, meaning like people who are signing up to your mailing lists based on if they've gone to events, what location they're in, what their interests are, if they're even interested in being served news, if they just want to more hear updates, stuff like that. So if you start tailoring content more, you're going to get a better response, even down to grabbing their first name, leaving that optional. But if you grab their first name and then personalize the emails with, "Hey Jed," it'll just read better than "Hi friend" or "Hi user" or something like that. What am I up to? Yeah, I did cover campaigns. Goody. Create campaigns. Campaigns are just a process of your emails, basically. So you sign up to the mailing list. Okay, that's step one. Then you use logic. You say, have they seen a newsletter before? No. Send them the latest one. Do I have an event coming up? Wait a few days. Send them something to the event. Have they opened it? All these analytics are trackable. Like, if you send out a newsletter, you can see who's opening your email, what time they opened it, and you can act accordingly. But as I say, be careful, because that will turn into harassment, and there's laws to cover that. So again, do your research. This is a jumping off point. Basically, if you send out an email, you need to make sure you have permission from the person who you got the email from to be able to send them this kind of stuff. You need to have your company details present in every email. You need to provide customers with the ability to unsubscribe. That's a big, big requirement. But these services will ensure that. They probably won't send out the email if that stuff's not there. This is the real nitty-gritty of this part, but it's really important. Everyone remembers, I'm pretty sure last year, everyone started getting, we use cookies on our website. Opt in, change your preferences. That was, thank Europe for that, basically. General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. So in May 2018, a law came into effect in Europe, which said that their websites have to be more strict with how they handle data. That affects, if your company has an office in Europe, if you track data of European customers, if you mention any particular European customer on your site, you have to follow this. So if you have a mailing list, you have to follow this. If I live in France and I can sign up to your mailing list, you have to follow this. So if you do that, you need a cookie message on your site that says we use cookies. It's great for consumers because we now know our data is not getting leaked anywhere. It's not bad for marketing. It's just a speed bump. Something that's going to slow you down, something you have to think about. There's a huge penalty for this. It's something like 20 million euros or something percentage of your company's earning, whichever is greater, which I guarantee is going to be 20 million. They're not going to straight away do it. You get a slap on the wrist the first time, get told to straighten up, and then you do it. I said it right there, 4% of your earnings. So there's websites you can go to where you run your website through it, and it tells you what cookies you have and what action you need to take. More fun stuff, which is your disclaimers, privacy policies, terms and conditions, which relate back to GDPR. These are legally binding documents. I'm going to preface this by saying I am not a lawyer. Do not take anything I say as what to do. I am just making this available to you so then you will do your research into what's out there. Because even if you go on the legal websites that tell you get a privacy policy, get this, they all say all of them at the bottom say, this is not legally binding, this is not legal counsel. Even if their website's called whatever legal.com, they say we're not a legal website. Basically use those as a jumping point, mock something up, get in touch with a lawyer and be like, does this cover my website? Because there's going to be things on your website that just need to be covered and some that don't. Yeah, look into other companies, look at what they do. You'll start noticing a pattern of what you'll need to include. Use the third-party tools, the plugins. Again, people have done this research, so doing the third parties is going to be better. They need to be updated regularly to be keeping in with current Australian law. Australia has like some of the most strictest copyright, not just copyright laws, online privacy laws. GDPR is an example of this. That it affects Europe, so now it affects us, basically. Seek legal assistance. So which do you need? Okay, so disclaimer, that is, you're probably going to need that the most. Straight, like just off the bat, just even having content. I have content on my site that gets updated. You need a disclaimer because you need to be able to say, this is going to change at any time. If you have blogs, we got blogs on our website, we need to be able to say, our blogs don't represent the thoughts of, you know, people we're known to work with. If you have a comment section, if you sell products, the way to remember it is a disclaimer is going to protect you. Where'd I go? Karen. Privacy policy. That is, wow. I commented privacy policy with privacy policy. That was meant to say privacy policy protects customers. Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's made to protect them. So again, if you have a sign-up form, you need a privacy policy that says, we use your data, we send it to these guys. If you use tracking, if you use Google Analytics, which I mentioned, you have to tell people you're doing that, even though it's anonymous. So we have Google Analytics, and I have no idea who's using the site. I know what country they come from, I know what city they come from, I know how old they are, and what their interests are. I don't know who they are, but you have to be able to tell people that I can track you. Some of the tracking software is really up there. Like you can record people on your site, so you know where they're going. And if you link to other websites, you'll need a privacy policy because you need to say in your privacy policy that our privacy policy doesn't cover their privacy policy and stuff like that. Again, legal counsel, whether or not you need these things. Terms and conditions, that's something that gets used interchangeably with privacy policy and disclaimer. It encompasses usually all of them. You'll find on the terms and conditions the disclaimer and the privacy policy will be there. And I reckon that is it for my part. We made it through the nitty gritty. If you want to discuss any of this stuff, like if you've got any questions now, I'll take them. But yeah, if you want to keep talking about this stuff, definitely let me know because as I said, very sorry I could only touch on as much as I could, but these should be their own talks really in themselves. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it up there so we can all look at Butters and yay. Thank you. Any questions? Oscar.
So what you mentioned sort of content management systems like Hootsuite, do you use a particular one?
We use MailChimp for our emails. Social media, like social media stuff. Yeah. We don't use anything from that kind of stuff. We just do that ourselves. It's great. It's just one of those cost-benefit things. We're still in a position where we can do it ourselves. As I said, this starts turning into a full-time job. So, you know, at my other work, we have someone who might be using that. But at this level, you don't really need it. Other content management, there's WordPress. That's a content management system. Wix, Squarespace. Yeah, those sorts of things. We don't use those. I've used them, especially for clients and stuff like that. We don't. I built our site. But yeah.
And then with sort of you mentioned like Wix and Squarespace and stuff.
Yeah.
From your knowledge, with all that GDPR, privacy policy, all that good stuff, does Wix kind of handle that? Like if I make a website on Wix, am I still like looking to write privacy policies and making sure my website
Yep.
is GDPR.
Yeah, because Wix and all those don't know what you're doing. They've provided a platform, so they'll have their own set of privacy policies that will, I haven't read them, but they're probably going to say any site that's made on here doesn't reflect Wix, doesn't reflect Squarespace. So you still have to make your own. It doesn't automatically put the cookie message in either. So Wix and all that, not a lot of experience with GDPR, stuff like that on there. I know WordPress, they have the plugins, so that's real plugin based. So there are plugins you can download. They really should make it known to you to do this kind of stuff. I don't think they do. It's annoying. They kind of expect you to do your own research, but yeah. Hey.
Yeah, when you were talking about accessibility, so the
Yes.
images which don't have alt text
Mm.
are illegal. Illegal to who? Like, is this Google
Well,
penalise you or is
Yeah, well,
or what?
it can go higher. Basically, it's the severity. So there's actually a story behind this. The 2000 Olympic Games,
Yeah.
when they were in Australia, the people who made the website, they made it goes something like this. I'm probably going to butcher it, but it goes basically something like this. There was a button at the bottom of like a form for you to click on. The button was an image, wasn't labeled. So screen readers couldn't pick it up, blind people didn't know it was there. So it got done for discrimination. I think that's what it was done for. So depending on what you get penalized with depends on how, so they actually got like financially penalized. Our level of stuff and how it works now, again, not a lawyer, is you're not looking at financial penalties, you're looking at Google penalties,
Yeah.
which are your position on a search rank. If you mess it up, you're going to end up lower down the rank. So that is something to Google, what Google actually searches for when they penalize you, because it's a huge list. It's like over 100 different things. It's font sizes, font colors, alt text, content, all that stuff. So yeah, definitely look into that.
Okay.
Yeah. I love accessibility. I was saying to Adam before, I love it, but it's hard. Yeah.
Earlier on, you showed a heat map of the website.
Yes.
What are you using to track that data?
Oh, we don't use this. This is real at the high end, but this is a plugin called Hotjar. There's a few of them out there that do different ones. There's more broader ones where they'll target, as I said, actual screen recordings of people using your site. But Hotjar seems to be like the go-to. That seems to be the most popular one that people start using. It's just a plugin.
Okay.
That's right. Any other questions? Oh, sorry.
In the case that you do get penalised by Google,
Yes.
how difficult is it to come back?
It's not too hard. Google actually has it set up where you can retest your own site, so you don't have to worry too much about that. The way you basically test how you've been penalized is search your company name. If you know that you're on Google and you type it in and it doesn't appear, then you know you're getting penalized. Yeah, Google has tools built into it where it'll rescan it. Sometimes you have to put something a bit more manual in if you've been really penalized, but it's not a huge concern. It's more the repercussions of you getting penalized that are going to be, so your loss of business, that's more of the concern.
So just to be clear, you won't know that you won't be alerted that you're being penalized.
No, I don't think so. I don't think they send you an email.
It's just that algorithm's gonna deprioritize.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have had emails from third parties, generally phishing for business, trying to improve my website because of an alt text.
Just have a little
Yeah.
junk email
So
folder.
that's like a one warning you get kind of.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so I mean, but I sort of get the sense they just send that to anyone, no? If they're just sort of, I
haven't done the control test and fixed my website up to find out if these
okay,
emails.
yeah, because I know I get tons for Game Plus, but it's just really,
Yeah.
literally like, I'm sure you get 10 emails like this a day.
How do you, so people are emailing you saying you got
People have been emailing me saying, I don't have alt text. These are things that will penalise my Google ranking. Do I want them to fix up your website?
Yeah, right. Yes, that's what the after site.
That's what I say. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Delete.
So like I've never had one. I'm pretty like scrupulous, so that's why I haven't seen it. But to relate to that, this is something that's really important that I didn't cover, but I could have, is similar to that is your domain name. So if your domain name lapses, there are third parties who have triggers set up. And if you register a domain, your name and where you are is public information. There is things you look up. So I know, someone has Melonhead Games AU registered. Who is that person? I'm looking them up. I'm sending them an email. It happened to you.
Well, that's what we did initially when we went to buy melonheadgames.com. It was owned by someone, and my mate who did a lot of like web code and stuff actually found the guy's email address. We sent him an email saying, "Oh, you're not using this. Would you like to sell it?" He was like, "Sure. What are you after?" And I was like, "Well, we're just some uni students. Have you got an offer for us?" Didn't reply at all. And then about a year later, I got an email saying, "Would you like us to purchase melonheadgames.com for you?" or something. It was like, "You can purchase it through us." We went through our hosting at GoDaddy, and it was up for sale. So we just bought it from them, and it was basically like the email we got was just an informative thing that like it was up for sale.
But yeah, there are third parties out there who will grab your domain. That's not your domain, your URL. Yeah. The second it lapses, buy it, and then sell it back to you for 10 times the price.
Yeah.
And they'll say, "Oh, luckily we caught it before someone really bad caught it," which has happened to people I've dealt with in the past. And don't ever buy it. Just don't ever give into it. Come up with another URL.
And that's further complicated by all the false. Your domain name's about to lapse.
Yeah, you've got to be vigilant. Yeah, spam filters all the way. Any other questions?